Now, if I'm to explain why I don't believe that the Earth is flat, I could go into all sorts of proofs of the spherical Earth. I could talk about, say, time zones, lunar eclipses, Foucault's pendulum, the southern stars, gravity, buoyancy, all that jazz, and I have, and I will, in other videos. But for this video, I want to talk about the responses to those criticisms. Not the exact responses themselves, but instead the way that flat earthers respond. Let's look at some examples. Let's say gravity. Let's say that the flat Earth is a finite plane, it has an edge, and it has gravity. Now, the further away we are from the center, the more diagonally we would be walking because gravity goes towards the center of mass, and this is something that we simply don't observe. If the Earth is a finite plane, it has no edge if it goes on forever, and has gravity, then it would have infinite gravity, we would be crushed and life cannot be sustained. Obviously that's not the case either, and because of complications like these, flat earthers tend to not believe in gravity at all. Instead, flat earthers tend to believe that buoyancy accounts for what we observe, and there are a minority of flat earthers that believe that the Earth is accelerating upwards. Now, these explanations are impossible for a number of reasons, but, I mean, think about it. How would they know that? Have they done any experiments to test these hypotheses? Is there any real research to conclude them? Any evidence? No, these hypotheses are asserted regardless of evidence because it fits their model. Here's another example. What about the lunar eclipse? According to the globers or globeheads or other names that are more insulting, the lunar eclipse is the result of the Earth casting a shadow on the moon, as this occurs when the moon is in the right position so that the Earth is between it and the sun, thereby casting a shadow. But how does this work on a flat Earth? I have yet to see a flat earther who believes that the sun goes to the underside of the flat Earth, and this has its own problems in itself, so where does this shadow come from? Well, again, there are a couple of explanations given. One is that there is a third body in the sky, apart from the sun and moon, that periodically just covers up the moon. Now, this doesn't really make sense because it doesn't cover up the stars, so it would have to be behind the stars but in front of the moon, but then the stars would have to be in front of the moon, so we should see the stars in front of the moon, which we don't. But another explanation is that the moon actually does not reflect the sun's light, but instead gives off its own light, and thereby makes its own stages as well as the eclipses. Somehow. But again, what evidence do we have of this? Do we have any astronomical observations that confirm this? Have we tested this in any way? Is there any evidence? How would this even work in the first place? These are what we call ad hoc hypotheses, meaning that these are explanations that are constructed purely to explain away any criticism and to keep the flat Earth hypothesis from being falsified. These are extra hypotheses that are tacked on to the hypothesis that the Earth is flat in order to move the goalpost any and every time that their idea falls flat. Get it? See, these ad hoc hypotheses all need to be proven by themselves in order to be asserted, much less in order to support another hypothesis. But the flat Earth relies heavily on ad hoc hypotheses. So in order to believe that the Earth is flat, you need to believe in unproven assertion after unproven assertion and just move the goalpost back every time there's an issue. This not only makes the idea of the flat Earth just overly complicated, but also inherently unreasonable. See, you could justify just about any ridiculous idea by making stuff up to push the goalpost back every time it's debunked. Another thing about flat earthers is that they deny any and all evidence against them. I mean, NASA is a prime example of this, right? NASA has many photographs, as well as composites, admittedly, but they do have photographs of the ball Earth, as well as videos and live streams not only of the Earth, but also of rocket launches and the various happenings in the International Space Station, like spacewalks. Now, this would be a lot of evidence for the ballish Earth, right? Well, of course not. It's all fake. It's all part of a conspiracy, a grand conspiracy that involves every world government, every education system, every astronomer, and every physicist. For some reason. Maybe I'm just not the kind of person to believe in conspiracy theories, but I don't think that's reasonable. Flat earthers also fail to understand some abstract things. I mean, they constantly make arguments that go against the basics of physics, the basics of astronomy, the basics of geometry, the basics of math. And this shows when they talk about, say, curvature drop, mirages, southern stars, etc. And again, I'm not going to go into the specifics in this video, but if you have a decent understanding of these things, you wouldn't think that the Earth is flat. And I mean, that's part of the problem. They can ask questions that really defy the basics of what they're talking about. So while it may be easy to ask those questions, it can be really complicated and tiresome to fully answer those questions. I mean, you can ask a few questions in a matter of seconds that will take hours to really explain. So because of that, they may feel like they've never been given a satisfactory answer, because if they can't really get the basics right, they're not really going to grasp it. So they may just end up dismissing all of it as overcomplicated and ridiculous, which is a little ironic. Not to mention the fact that a lot of flat earth beliefs are based on religion, and if you're familiar with my channel, you know that I am an atheist, but that's a different topic. But perhaps this has more to do with the fact that I am more willing to believe what I am told by the education system, by science, and by the government. Now, I don't believe everything that I'm told by those sources, nor do I believe them blindly, but I consider myself to be a skeptic. I look at things skeptically, and as far as I'm concerned, most of what I've been told from those sources pass the skeptic test. And that includes the round Earth. And on my channel, I'm going to continue to explain why that is. This channel is funded in part by viewers like you. Thank you.